In 1950, nearly 70% of American homes had a front porch. Today, fewer than half of new homes are built with one, and most of those are decorative, too narrow for a chair, too shallow for a conversation. We didn't just lose a piece of architecture, we lost an entire way of being a neighbor. Because before air conditioning, before television took over the evening, before the back patio replaced the front yard, the porch was where America actually happened. It was the first social network, and nobody needed an invitation. So what exactly went on out there, night after night, summer after summer, on those wooden porches that held entire neighborhoods together? And what would it take to bring any of it back? To understand the porch, you have to understand the heat. In the years before 1947, when window air conditioners first became affordable for the average family, the inside of an American home in July was almost unlivable after sundown. Brick walls and tin roofs trapped the day's heat well into the night. The kitchen, with its wood or coal stove still warm from supper, became the worst room in the house. So families did the only sensible thing. They walked outside and sat down. The porch wasn't a luxury, it was survival. And in being forced outside every evening for half the year, Americans accidentally invented the most powerful neighborhood institution this country has ever had. The first pastime was the simplest one of all: sitting. A grandfather in a rocking chair with a pipe. A grandmother in a wicker rocker with a basket of mending. The slow creak of wood on wood was the soundtrack of every American summer evening from 1890 to 1960. Rocking chairs weren't just furniture. They were communication. A slow rock meant peace. A faster one meant something was on someone's mind. And when a neighbor walked by, the rocking would stop, a hand would lift, and a conversation would begin that no one had scheduled, and no one would remember to write down. The second pastime was the porch swing. Suspended from chains bolted into the porch ceiling, the swing was where teenagers learned what it meant to like someone. Courting in the 1890s and early 1900s happened almost entirely on porch swings, in full view of a girl's parents through the parlor window. There was no privacy. That was the point. A boy might walk 3 miles after supper just to sit on a girl's porch swing for an hour, never touching her hand, while her father read the newspaper 10 feet away through the screen door. Whole marriages began on those swings. So did whole heartbreaks. The third pastime was the work that didn't feel like work. Snapping green beans, shelling peas, shucking corn, peeling peaches for canning. American women spent untold thousands of hours on porches with metal bowls in their laps, fingers moving on automatic pilot while their mouths did the real work, talking. The porch was where recipes were exchanged, where pregnancies were announced, where opinions were formed about every man, woman, and preacher within 5 miles. Snapping a bushel of beans took 2 women an hour. They could have done it inside in 20 minutes. They chose the porch because the work was the excuse. The conversation was the point. But if you thought the porch was only for old folks and gossiping women, you don't understand what came next. Because as the sun went down, the entire neighborhood came alive in a way no modern subdivision can match. The fourth pastime was music, and it was everywhere. A father with a harmonica, a teenage son with a guitar, a grandmother who knew every hymn ever written and would sing them at dusk in a voice that carried 4 houses down. Hand-cranked phonographs sat on porch tables, playing scratchy records of Caruso and Bessie Smith and the Carter family. Neighbors would drift toward the music, the way moths drift toward a porch light. And by 9 o'clock on a Saturday night in 1935, a single porch in a small Ohio town might have 15 people on it, half of whom hadn't been invited. They had simply heard the music and walked over. The fifth pastime was games. Checkers and dominoes were the kings of the front porch. Two old men could play a single game of checkers for 2 hours, smoking pipes and not speaking for 10 minutes at a stretch, and consider it the best evening they'd had all week. Dominoes was louder, more social, often played by 4 men slamming bone tiles onto a small table while the women watched from the swing. Card games came out as the night wore on. Pinochle, gin rummy, hearts. The porch table held more decks of playing cards than any other surface in American history. The sixth pastime was the radio, and it changed everything for about 20 years before television came and ended the porch forever. In the 1930s and 40s, a family would carry the heavy wooden radio out to the porch on an extension cord, set it on a small table, and the entire block would gather to listen to the World Series, or to a Joe Louis fight, or to President Roosevelt's fireside chats. 20 or 30 people might sit in silence on a single porch, listening to a baseball game, erupting together when a home run cleared the wall in a stadium 800 miles away. Nothing in modern life replicates the experience of strangers becoming neighbors over a shared sound. The seventh pastime was the evening stroll. After supper, with the dishes done and the heat finally breaking, entire families would walk the neighborhood. Not for exercise, not for a destination. They walked because everyone else was walking. And every 50 feet, a porch full of people would call out a greeting, and the strollers would stop, climb the steps, sit for 10 minutes, and continue on. A walk around the block in 1942 could take 90 minutes. You couldn't get past 4 houses without someone offering you a glass of lemonade. The eighth pastime was the lemonade itself, along with everything that came with it. Iced tea sweating in a glass pitcher, watermelon sliced on the porch rail with a paring knife, the seeds spit into the petunias. Hand-cranked ice cream made on Sunday afternoons by a father who let his children take turns at the crank until their arms ached. Fudge cooling on a plate. Salted peanuts in their shells. The porch was a buffet that ran from May until October, and nobody counted what anyone else ate. The ninth pastime was reading aloud. Before television, the evening newspaper was a shared experience. A father would read the headlines out loud to whoever was on the porch, and a discussion would follow about a war in Europe, a strike in Pittsburgh, a baby born to a cousin 3 counties away. Children sat on porch steps and listened to their grandparents read from the Bible, or from Mark Twain, or from a paperback Western. Whole novels were consumed by entire families this way, 1 chapter a night, summer after summer, until the spine of the book gave out. The 10th pastime was simply watching. Watching the children play kick the can in the street, watching the streetcar pass, watching the iceman make his deliveries with his horse and wagon, watching the same neighbor walk the same dog at the same hour every single evening for 30 years. The porch was a permanent box seat to the slow theater of the neighborhood, and Americans never got tired of the show. They couldn't have, because the show was everything they had. If you're enjoying this look back at the world we lost, take a moment to subscribe. Stories like this one disappear faster than the porches themselves, and we tell them every week. But what made the porch so different from anything we have today wasn't any single pastime. It was the architecture of trust that all of them sat on top of. When you sat on a porch, you were declaring yourself available. Anyone could stop and talk. Anyone could climb the steps. Children from 4 blocks away could ask for a drink of water and receive it without question. The porch was an unlocked door to a community that no longer needs to exist, because we have all locked the doors and gone inside. And when it ended fast. 3 things killed the American front porch in less than 20 years. The first was AIR conditioning. By 1965, half of American homes had it, and the indoors finally became more comfortable than the outdoors on a July night. The second was television. The single screen in the living room pulled families inside after supper, and within a decade, the after-dinner stroll was gone. The third was the automobile and the suburb it created. Houses were set further back from the street. Garages replaced front doors as the entry point. Driveways replaced sidewalks as the path to a home. By 1970, builders were leaving porches off new houses entirely because nobody used them anymore. The porch hadn't been killed. It had been quietly forgotten. Today, you can drive through a brand new subdivision in any state in America and not see a single person sitting outside, even on a perfect summer evening. The porches, when they exist at all, are decorative. The chairs, if there are chairs, are empty. The neighbors, if you know their names, you learned them from a delivery package left at the wrong door. We have replaced the porch with the back deck, the screen with another screen, the front yard wave with the silent garage door rolling down behind us. We have gained privacy. We have lost something we don't quite have a word for. What the front porch gave to American neighborhoods was something no algorithm can recreate and no app can deliver. It gave people a daily, low-stakes reason to see each other, to wave, to talk for 2 minutes about the weather, to know which child belonged to which family, to notice when an old man on the corner hadn't come outside for 3 days. The porch built community out of nothing more than chairs, lemonade, and the willingness to sit still long enough for someone to walk by. And maybe that's the part worth remembering. That community was never expensive. It was never complicated. It just required showing up in the same place at the same time, evening after evening, until showing up became a kind of love. If this story brought back a memory of a porch you knew, or made you wish for one you never had, hit subscribe and stick around. We bring back a forgotten piece of American life every week. And next time we're walking right off the porch and into the neighborhood to a Saturday night ritual that disappeared even faster than this one did.